Oh, but isn't that what we're used to here? The 170 hitter from Colorado winning the FaceTime. Woody Page, a man with a winning baseball team. Also, Kalishaw, Gutierrez, Yates, and A's and Yankees. Oakland's fascinating decision to go with a bullpen start. Let's go around the horn.
Congrats, Woody, I guess.
It's Around the Horn, the show of competitive banter. Here's Tony Reale.
The longest MLB elimination game ever, but they've only been playing baseball for 130 years, so honestly, what does that mean? How the Rockies went into Chicago, won that game. How the Cubs' season unraveled gradually, then suddenly. And Bud Black calling this game a classic, but he won. So he's not going out after one extremely long, extremely short game. Woody Page, we're going to start with you, of course. How did your Rockies pull off this classic?
Well, let's start with the starter, Cal Freeland. I've told you guys all season long, nobody paid attention to a guy that should be in the top 3 for the Cy Young that people have never heard of, grew up in Colorado, has given a whole new meaning to the words Rocky Mountain High, Colorado. And I think that one of the other aspects of it is this team has come from behind all year long. And here they got off to a great start in the game. And Freeland outpitched John Lester and the bullpen, which has been very good of late. Really did a job in holding down the Cubs, and the Cubs looked like they were worn out playing at home at the end when the Rockies did something never before in the playoffs. They played in 3 different cities in 3 days and had traveled thousands of miles, and then they got to get on a bus, go 90 miles to play Milwaukee so they can calm down just a little bit. I just think it was an instant classic that should be on.
All right, well, Woody Page is telling you guys to calm down, then you really did some celebrating, so that's incredible. For all you other guys who are not so far in the forest, you can't see the trees. Is this a classic, Tim Kalishaw, or does the randomness of it all overrule it?
An instant classic needs a little more activity than a run in the first inning and then a run 2 hours later, then a run 3 hours later. I was starting to think about, what is that minor league rule? How does that work about putting a guy on second base?
Oh, come on. No, you weren't.
We weren't quite at that level.
You can't decide a playoff game like that.
Woody's right about the Colorado bullpen caught fire toward the end of the year. They also had the good fortune of being picked by me yesterday to win, so they had that going for them. And the biggest thing is the Cubs' bats have just gone silent. In their last 47 games, Tony, 17 times they have scored 0 or 1 run.
Right.
And the last 2 games, last 2 days at home, play-in game, and then this game, 1 run.
So you don't see this as the Cubs season, per se, unraveling. You're seeing it as this is who they were for the last chunk of the season, a team that had to scratch to get some runs across. All right? Gutierrez, how about you?
Yeah, in terms of the game, man, if you're the Cubs, or just in terms of excitement anyway, there wasn't a whole lot of action there. If you're the Cubs, you're talking about 1 extra base hit in 13 innings. Normally in a performance like that, you're talking about some dominant pitching matchup, and really we're just talking about a couple offenses that really weren't up to snuff, and that's been the case with the Cubs, that we mentioned, for the second half of the year. They played in 40 games in which they scored 1 or less runs, and when you talk about this run that they've been on with this core, I wouldn't be surprised if they actually were fatigued, and you could see some of it out there on the field. It seems like they need some sort of injection of energy into the lineup in particular. I mean, the difference between them and the Brewers is 1 game, and yet we consider the Brewers to be all great, and the Cubs, because their expectations were so high that now we're a little bit down on them. I think Joe Madden gets a bit of a hard time because he has so many decisions to make, especially when your team isn't scoring that many runs. So I give a little break. And the Cubs
so you're giving him a break. I thought you were going the other way. I thought you were going to say he gets too much of a pass. Because he's so good and functions with the media and so forth that okay. Clint Yates, you want to make a ruling on this game and then on the Cubs?
I mean, I'm sorry. If you watch this baseball game, it was an exciting game. You had Dahl with the non-error in right field. You had Desmond getting thrown out on a play that mattered. You had the hug between second and third, which is a massive play in this game that got reviewed incorrectly. And you had the situation with Hayward getting punched out at a huge moment of the game. There was a lot of stuff that went on in this game. If you actually like baseball, that was fine. Not to mention Gore getting on base and stealing a bag when the guy's got more stolen bases than he has plate appearances in his career. There was a lot to like here in terms of this one-game specific situation. I agree with Bud Black entirely. It was a fun one for those of us who stayed up to watch.
Yeah, I mean, the length of it, okay. Yeah, it was long. We get it. But with any potential hit deciding the game at any moment when you're in extra innings. I mean, what more could you possibly want? Hey, I want to do an autopsy on the Cubs here, though, all right? Because you were talking about their expectation. And also, I was reading Jeff Passan's column today in Yahoo. I mean, there was a player somewhere who was using an iPad during the game. This is a team that has incredible promise in the youth, and Javier Baez and Wilson Contreras, but then also has some missing pieces here. What's wrong with this team, Clinton Yates?
I think they just can't get hits in big-time moments. They played in more one-run games than a lot of teams in this league, and they've lost more. The only team that lost more were the Orioles, for God's sakes. So think about that when you talk about how well the Cubs did in the clutch moments. I don't think you get rid of Madden, though. Who are you going to get is the question I always ask when you talk about getting rid of managers. I don't know that there's
right. That was news of the day that he'd be coming back. What now for the Cubs, Tim Kalisha?
Well, I mean, look, things blew up on them with Yu Darvish was their big offseason signing last year. That went terribly. Maybe Cole Hamels has resurrected his career, and maybe he'll stick around and do something for them. But they got to find a way. They have the bats. They have players who are good hitters. Chris Bryant, his injuries and things like that, they'll get going next year.
So you wouldn't overreact to this year being a letdown after last year being a letdown after the World Series from 2 years ago. Real quick, Woody, I know. Just a morsel here for us. A preview of Rockies Brewers. Go ahead.
Well, you've got an MVP candidate in Arenado at third base, another MVP candidate at shortstop, Batman and Robin, Story and Arenado, Blackman an all-star in center field. They do have the bats that didn't awaken last night, but they scored 10 on Sunday, 12 actually on Sunday. This is a great hitting team, even on the road. And you saw with Freeland and Marquez, they've got two of the best young pitchers in all
right.
baseball.
I mean, it's the pitching staff that does it, I think, for this year's team, maybe even more so than years past. Maybe their offense came slightly back down to earth from that altitude, but the pitching's been great. We need to move on now. Have to talk A's-Yankees. Let's do it. How fascinating this is now that the A's decided to go with a bullpen star, Liam Hendricks, than everybody else in a winner-take-all game. Yankees counter with Luis Severino, who started last year's wildcard game, which was then, in effect, a bullpen start because he couldn't get out of the first. Tim, I'll start with you here. Could the bullpen start be the right move?
I think it's definitely the right move. They don't have great starting pitching. They'll have some guys who are starters. I bet Edwin Jackson probably pitches tonight, but they can treat this like Bob Melvin can manage this like the All-Star game. They haven't played for 2 days. If they win, they'll have an off day before they go play Boston. He might use 8 pitchers in 9 innings if necessary. He may not need to do that, but it throws off the Yankees in terms of putting a lineup together, and I'd rather have a bullpen going than Severino, who has struggled in the second half of the season.
Wow, incredible. So you think a bullpen start is preferable to Luis Severino because of his struggles in the second half?
Yes.
Does anybody agree with that? Let's see. Let's go around the horn. Gutierrez?
Well, Severino's been good in his last 3 starts, so that's kind of what they're hoping for, is that he's rebounded some here. But I'm absolutely intrigued by this Oakland A's thing, because if there's ever a team that can do this in the postseason, it's got to be this A's team who started opening day with the lowest payroll in baseball and are relatively anonymous here. And we're not talking about some stud reliever who's been great all year long. This is in Hendricks, the guy who was demoted on June 25th and has been really good since he came back. But it seems to me like it creates sort of a pressure-free environment. Severino's got to be on it. You got to get 6, maybe even 7 innings from him. With these relievers, you might as well have the word reliever on the back of their jerseys, because it doesn't matter who they are. All that matters is Bob Melvin is calling on this. He's going to get the credit one way or another. And if they fail, oh well, weren't supposed to be there anyway.
Clinton Yates, is that how you see it?
What's interesting about this to me, though, is that with Hendricks, the only time it didn't really work is when they went too long with him on the front end and they threw him into the second inning as opposed to just the first inning, which makes me laugh. But in general, I love the idea of a bullpen start for a game like this that's a single elimination. It's the perfect time to implement it. You don't bang out whatever it is you have of your rotation going forward, and you're able to get through this in a way that if you're in a one-game situation, actually makes sense from a strategy standpoint. I think this is brilliant from the A's.
Okay, all right. That's the majority of the panel right now. All right, that's the majority of the panel right now. Woody Page, do you agree with this?
Yes, I love what the A's are doing. Think about this, Tony. Your question should have been, who's going to last longer, the starter or the reliever at the start of the game?
Yeah.
I think when
After
you look back at Severino last year, 1 out. He gave up 3 runs. It was out of there. The Yankees, as Tim said, I think his most important thing is they can't prepare, because they're going to go back and forth with left-handers and right-handers, and you know how the tradition of baseball is. So they're going to be stuck for pinch hitters throughout the game. The Yankees will be.
Okay, Yankees will win this game if blank. A's will win this game if blank. Can you start with that, Clinton Yates?
If Chris Davis scores a run, I think the A's will win this game. But if either Stanton or Judge goes out, I think the Yanks win.
Israel?
I mean, listen, I'm going coin flip here because the Yankees won the wild card game last year. They're going to lose it this year, but I just don't have that much trust in Severino or that Yankees team.
So the answer to the question was if the Yankees flip a coin, if the A's flip a coin? Kalishaw, answer our question, please.
Oakland wins if they show that their power is equal to the Yankees, which it is. Matt Chapman's OPS better than anybody on the Yankees other than Judge, and Judge hasn't been hot.
Incredible.
So
That's true, but when you say the power, this is a Yankees team that set the record for most home runs in a season this year.
Oakland's number 2 in home runs.
And Woody Page?
The A's will win if they get good relief pitching.
Can't get more basic than that. Thank you very much, Woody. One more thing, the baseball Let the Kids Play campaign, rewriting the unwritten rules.
They said rules are rules. No celebrating. Keep your head down. Flashy, immature, showboat.
You do not do in baseball.
No more talk. Let the kids play.
Clinton, what do you think of baseball saying let's rewrite the unwritten rules?
This is fascinating to me on a couple levels. Number one, I'd be surprised to learn how many people actually know the sound of Ken Griffey Jr.'s voice before that reveal actually happened, indicating who they're actually talking to regarding this. And number two, they're not actually telling anybody who's doing something wrong, which are all the old dudes in the league that are throwing balls at people's heads. We know who the exciting players are. How about we get something indicating what the problem is and not just celebrating the guys that are good?
Okay, you don't think they were exposing the problem a little bit there without ratting out any of their players? Okay, how about you, Gutierrez?
Well, I mean, it's interesting the way they're going about this, going with the public route, say, hey, we should let these guys play rather than just kind of telling the players, hey, you guys don't do all that other stuff that's making our audience mad. So it's almost as if this is a more winnable situation for them if you put public pressure on the players to stop this. But if you look around the world, the way baseball is played, it seems to be played with a lot more joy than it's played here. We have people from all of those nations playing here in Major League Baseball. Bring the joy to Major League Baseball. Let everybody experience it a little bit better.
I think this is a mistake. You have the greatest plays ever being made at shortstop, second base, and the outfield. Showcase those instead of issuing an apology that, hey, sometimes guys get a little too exuberant. I hope you think it's okay now. It just doesn't feel right.
So you view this as an apology?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Woody Page, how about you?
I think baseball's making a subtle but bold stance here. Tim, you're wrong. I think they need to reach out and say the unwritten rules are not worth the paper they're written on, to steal a quote. And I think that this is a great idea to have Griffey Jr. involved.
Yeah, I like it overall. I just don't think this is necessarily the best way to do it.
I'm with Woody Page here. 30 points. Going into buy or sell. I don't think anybody's been there, at least in the last year of the show. Recent era. Modern era of Around the Horn. Taking a break right here. Buy or sell on the other side. I mean, that's more than your
the last 3 weeks
season average right now.
Fact is, every insurance company hopes you drive safely. But Allstate helps you with DriveWise. Feedback that helps you drive safer, and that could lower your cost. Now that you know the truth,